Hello, my fellow speakers and friends. Welcome to Speaking with the Speaker tonight. Um, I'm really excited about this one. This is something that is very close to me, mainly because of the name of my channel. This is a series of books and an author that inspired me a lot, and kind of later in life, oddly enough. It wasn't something I was very into right at first. In fact, it was one of my younger brothers that got me into this. And it kind of grabbed hold of me and took me over in a way I wasn't expecting. So I am way excited for tonight's show. We're going to be talking Orson Scott Card and some of the books that he wrote for the first 30 minutes. And then the second half of the show is going to be even better, because we have Adega Outlaw, or Adega, who is the author of some fantastic books. And he is actually going to be here with us to discuss his books and just everything that you might be interested. So I hope you'll be joining us and be able to comment here in the chat. And there he is. Adega's in the chat. So that's already awesome. So I wanted to start out with just a little bit of background information. I'm going to read you the Wikipedia kind of bio for Orson Scott Card to kind of give you an idea of his background, where he came from. And I mean, this is something you could read for yourself, but sometimes it's better when somebody else is actually reading it. I don't know if that's going to be the case for tonight. So Orson Scott Card was born in August 24th in 1951. He is an American novelist, critic, public speaker, essayist, and columnist. He writes in several genres, but is best known for his science fiction works. His novels Ender's Game in 1985 and the sequel Speaker for the Dead in 1986 both won Hugo and Nebula Awards. Now, those used to mean something. Those awards used to be a big deal in science fiction. Now they've become more of a, do you have the right opinion and what's your politics, and then you win those awards. But back when he won it, it really was just based off of merit. And did you write a good book? Was it a good story? And oh, hello, Lady Mist, welcome. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. But so I mean, this was a big deal when he won those. I mean, and to win them back to back is pretty impressive. So now, making Card's first author to win the two top American prizes in science fiction literature in consecutive years. A feature film adaptation of Ender's Game, which Card co-produced, was released in 2013. Card also wrote the Locus Fantasy Award-winning series Tales of Alvin Maker in 1987 through 2003. So when my show started tonight, you may have noticed I kind of used the trailer from the Ender's Game film and kind of rearranged it and hodgepodge changed the music and stuff, because it was an okay film. It was a lot of material to cover. And this is the problem with motion picture films, is that there's far too often too much information to condense from a book into a 2-hour movie. And so they end up cutting about a bunch of stuff. But the movie actually was pretty good. Had Harrison Ford in it. And Asa Butterfield is who played Ender. And I can't remember who all else was in there. There's a black lady that's one of my favorite African-American or black female actors. And but yeah. And Just Another Nerds just popped in. Welcome. Glad to see you here. Thanks for coming. But yeah, so it was I don't know, it was a pretty decent film, but it didn't quite capture what the book talks about. But I mean, it's a difficult thing. They'd been trying to make that movie of Ender's Game for years and had such a hard time trying to figure out, how are we going to do this with such a young cast? How are we going to do that? So because they have the same characters going through the book series. And they were afraid that the actors would age out, or they wouldn't look right, or whatever. So anyway, we'll continue with his bio here. Card, who is a great-grandson of Brigham Young, was born in Richland, Washington, and grew up in Utah and California, where he was a student of Brigham Young University. His plays were performed on stage. He served in Brazil as a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 2 years and headed a community theater for 2 summers. Card spent, pardon me, Card had 27 short stories published between 1978 and 1979 and won the John Campbell Award for Best New Writer. He earned his master's degree in English from the University of Utah in 1981 and wrote novels in science fiction, fantasy, nonfiction, and historical fiction genres in the 1980s. Card continued to write prolifically and published over 50 novels and over 45 short stories. So that's where I'm going to leave the bio, the endless bio. But he is a very good writer. He really is. I've enjoyed his stuff. Like I said, my brother I watched my brother read his novels for years when I was growing up, and I'm just like, eh. It was at a time when I'm just like, books, but TV's so much better. So, and I'm sure we've all had those phases in our lives where we shouldn't have those phases, but we did. I read the crap out of Star Trek novels, but this unknown Orson Scott Card guy, I was just like, nah. And then, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago, I decided, he loved them. There's got to be something to them. And I was driving truck at the time, which I still am. And so I bought some of the audiobooks and was immediately hooked. It was Ender's Game is a little harder to get into. My favorite of the series is called Speaker for the Dead, which oddly enough, this is where I came up for the name of my channel. But they are extremely well written, at least in my opinion. The first one, it talks about the destruction. For those of you who haven't read, I'll try not to give too much away, but I will give kind of a brief synopsis. Ender Wiggin this is at a time when the earth has become extremely overpopulated. So all the countries have initiated limited child rearing. So you cannot have more than 2 children, which is you're not decreasing the population, but you're not increasing it by allowing people to have large families. Now, Ender was what was called a third because his family, his mom and dad produced really smart children for the most part, like kind of exceptional kids. They saw the potential and they wanted them to have another kid because during this time also the earth was attacked by a race called the buggers, or that's what they called them, was buggers, because they look like large insects. And they did a lot of damage before they were able to be driven off. And the characters, the main pilot that actually kind of wipes out one of the city ships and basically sends them running. I just lost his name, but he's a Maori pilot. He's got tattoos all over. And in the film, you see him played by Ben Kingsley, which did a good job of it. But I was just like, there's plenty of Maori actors out there. You could have got to play that role. But I just, it's a really cool story. So they start recruiting kids to train them as soldiers in this book. And they take them into orbit into a school called the Battle School. And they basically train these kids how to become the ultimate strategist, the best soldiers Earth can produce. But they're really training them to be generals more than just soldiers. But they're training them to think militarily and stuff. And it's just there's a whole bunch of different things that happen, and I couldn't possibly go into all of it in half an hour. But hail and hello, Xenocide, welcome. He makes a comment here. Let's pull this up. Audiobooks is the first time I got heavy into Ender's Verse. I used to check out from so he drove them drove tractors. Oh yeah, thank you, Mazer Rackham. He was the Maori guy who destroyed the ship and basically helped defeat the buggers and send them running. Now, they didn't defeat the buggers retreated, and they could never figure out why. They figured they were coming back at some point to get them. But anyway, I think it's amazing what they what this guy was able to do and the world he was able to create. Ender is a fantastic character. He's a young kid. He gets put through all of these trials, going through just really strenuous things to teach him how, because they already seen the brilliance. When he's younger, he actually kills a student in one of the school that he's in, and instead of that, like, getting him huge in trouble, they look at it like, because of the way he does it and how it happens, they realize he wasn't like homicidal. He wasn't trying to kill this kid. He defeated him utterly. This kid was like a bully and a tormentor and just did horrible things to Ender and constantly caused him problems. And so he got put in a situation where he couldn't do anything else, and he ends up killing this kid. But he does it in a way, just it's quick, it's painless, and the people who are watching Ender to see how brilliant he's going to be realize, he didn't kill him just to kill somebody. He killed him to end that forever, because that's the only way Ender thinks. His mind works that way. He wins. He finds victory, and he makes sure that the enemy cannot come after him anymore. And they see this in him. And it is really, really well done, really well told. And then it goes through this, and the story, Reader's Digest version, he goes through, makes it through the school. They're training him, and he ends up defeating the buggers. I will not tell you anymore. I won't tell you the details, because how it happens and the way it happens is really worthwhile. You should listen to the audio books. I will tell you this: if you're interested in audiobooks at all, they are fantastic. Super, super well done. It's done by a multi-group cast that reads for different characters, and it is really well done. The reading is fantastic. The voice work is fantastic. They're some of my favorite audiobooks because they are so well put together. And he gets the same cast to read all of his books. And they're fun. They're fun to listen to, and they're interesting. The next book in the series is Speaker for the Dead. Now, this one happens a little bit later in Ender's life. He has to go to a planet where he kind of becomes involved because he was the one who killed all of the buggers and ended their race. He's known, at first he's praised as the hero that saved Earth. He goes on to write a book, he himself, because in defeating his enemy, he learns their mind. He learns everything about them, and he understands them in a way that almost nobody else does. It's part of the gift that he has. To understand an enemy, to understand how to defeat them utterly, you have to know them inside and out. Well, he writes this book called The Hive Queen, and it basically, he casts himself almost in the villainous role. And because of this, and it becomes a worldwide bestseller, everybody knows this book. It's so well written that he ends up being called the Xenocide, which is funny because Xenocide's in the chat. But he ends up being called Xenocide, which is the title of the third book in the series. So he actually makes himself, the enemy. Yeah, Ender the Xenocide. Now, his real name is Andrew Wiggin, but because his sister couldn't say Andrew when she was younger, she called him Ender. So that became the nickname, and that's what he's always called. So his real name is Andrew Wiggin. And he has a sister and a brother, and they play very heavily into this story. But they kind of, like Valentine, who's his sister, plays into it all the way through. Peter, which is his older brother, who is just a real piece of work of a character, he actually comes into this series in another series of books. And he is in the original series, but not in what you would consider kind of a normal way. But he is discussed. He becomes known as the Hegemon and conquers Earth. So, and then Ender writes a book about his brother later in life called The Hegemon. But seriously, if you are into science fiction at all, I highly recommend you going to read this series of books. Now, Xenocide was not my favorite. Children of the Mind, which is the fourth book in the series, was a lot better in my opinion. But they're all good. But everybody has their favorites and things. It's just like in the Twilight series. My favorite was probably the first and the last. The two in the middle were okay, but I mean, yeah, I know. I like the Twilight series. I've heard all the jokes. Oh, gay guy. But no, I just like books, and I love vampire books, and I just love interesting books. Which is one of the reasons I asked a fantastic author to come on here a little bit later in the program, because his books have also done the same thing for me. He is fantastic. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about Adega Outlaw, or Adega. But these books are just the world building and the attention to detail is really great. To read the forewords and the afterwords of the book, and to see how he put these books together were fun. No, I'm not joking. But they really are just great books. It is definitely worth your time. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was why I called my channel The Speaker for the Dead. And I call myself Brian the Speaker. Mainly because I wanted to use Orson Scott Card's ideas without stealing his ideas. I absolutely give him credit for, the giving me these ideas and stuff, and he's the originator of this. Yeah, Xenocide is hard to read. For those of you who don't know, Xenocide's making a comment in the chat. Here, let me pull it up here. Nope. We'll get to Adega next. He jumped in there. So Xenocide is hard to read. Xenocide and the Children of the Mind were originally one book. So that is true. But yeah, they are difficult. They are more difficult to read. They're very heavy into cultural references. They deal a lot with the Chinese culture and stuff. I mean, but it is fascinating, but it is kind of a hard read at times. Because he killed a lot of ants as a child. Yeah, yes, he killed a lot of ants. They were big ants, semi-sentient ants, so he feels pretty bad. That's awesome. But yeah, so when I chose to call my channel Speaker for the Dead, it's because after he writes these books, he starts going around the galaxy and speaking the death of people. Which is now, in a regular funeral, you'll see a eulogy, and people will get up there and they'll say all the nice things and tell all the fantastic, wonderful things and talk about their life and try and build them up, which is cool. It's great. But that's not what the Speakers for the Dead did. They told your life, the reality of your life, without edit. So if you were a horrible sack of crap, they would tell what a horrible sack of crap you were and why you were that way. It wasn't just denigrating somebody. It was telling the truth of someone's life. And truth and honesty was paramount to this. And it became a pseudo religion where people began doing this, like a priest would do. And it was considered a religion later on. And it's fantastic. But he was the kind of the original. I mean, he didn't mean to found a religion, and there was no head of this religion or whatever. There was just a series of things that you studied, and you could become a speaker for the dead. So that's what I wanted to do when I started this, was to speak honestly and openly and truthfully as much as I could, as much information as I knew, which was how the Speakers for the Dead did it, about subjects, not just someone's life, but about politics, entertainment, family issues, just everything, the whole scope of human emotion. I thought that that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a teller of truth, No, just another nerd just put a comment in here. You like Twilight? So, uh, I okay. I said I'd heard them all, but that's a new one. I hit my head a lot going into it. Yeah, oh, Loki's Mornings of Mischief just popped in. Welcome, Loki. Glad to have you here. But yeah, yes, no, I didn't hit my head. The books are great. The movies will make you want to put a gun in your mouth. Disclaimer being the Speaker for the Dead does not encourage anyone alive or anything to commit suicide. I have to say that, I have to give the disclaimer. So, but now apparently Adega shares this view of Twilight. So, but yeah, no, I do. I like the books. The books were great. The movies sucked. They were terrible. They got the two worst human beings in the world to play Edward and Bella. And since the story is completely based around those two characters, you just end up sitting there going, please, Lord, make it stop. The rest of the cast was great, but they picked, I'm not a fan of Robert Pattinson, and I'm not a fan of the girl who has one facial feature, or one facial expression, I should say. And I mean, I always knew I didn't like her. Now I really know why I don't like her, because she has become just a raging sack of cat vomit. Women's liberal. Anyway, I don't want to become negative. This is about something good. Orson Scott Card and Adega Outlaw. So, but it is important that we support those great things and push out these books and things that we love and talk about what we need to save, because it really does become easy to talk about stuff we hate and stuff that bothers us. And I do that because like I said, honesty is part of what I want to try and do here. Because that's what life's about. If you do nothing but lie, like we see so many people do now, what's the point? I mean, why? Why would anybody want to believe you or listen to you or follow what you say or be a part of anything that you're a part of? Because you've proven that you're a liar and a worthless human being. And anybody who's been around people like that know they're not the people you want to be around, because you can't depend on them for anything. But yeah, so I do encourage you to go read these. Now, he has several series. Like I said, when I read his bio, he's got over 50 books. And the next series I want to start working on is called the Shadow series, which is the Ender's Shadow, which is one of the other characters you learn about in the first book. You ever have too many thoughts in your brain and they're all trying to trip over each other to get that? That's what I'm experiencing. So, Ender's Game. So, and his character is called Bean, which is a strange name for a character, but that's what they call him. And so they do this whole other series because Peter, who becomes the hegemon, uses Bean to help him conquer the world and become the hegemon of Earth. He didn't want to use Ender because Ender didn't like Peter because of the kind of human being he was and the nasty, yes, Bean and Petra are fantastic characters. They are, like I said, I cannot sing the praises of this enough. Like I said, the detail and the character development and all the different things that gets him to where he is just are amazing. So, and that was a comment by Loki. Petra is another one of the children in the battle school, and they become Ender's team. They end up going around him and building on what he's doing. And I mean, they're all brilliant in their own way. Ender, or Andrew, is just kind of the best of the bunch. I mean, they he becomes that leader. He's just a natural leader. That's one of the reasons they wanted him for the battle school. So as an aside is talking about some other, now these are books that I haven't even read, Freedom Factor and The Alliance. I have read, and I would like to tell you about one last one before I bring on our guest, is Empire. If you read no other Orson Scott Card book, read Empire. Now, I think you should read them all, and I'm working on going through them. But Joe, I only have so much money to spend on books. So Empire is kind of a real life, it's a fiction novel based on what could happen if the United States ended up in a second civil war based on politics, right versus left, liberal versus conservative. And the way he writes it and the characters are unbelievably good. Hail, Purple Valkyrie. Thanks for stopping in. Good to see you. God, it's got to be really late where you are. For those of you who don't know, Purple Valkyrie lives in the UK. So, I mean, it's got to be like, 10, 11 o'clock there? I can't remember. It's been too long since I lived in the UK. But yeah, it is just and it's read by the same group of readers in the audiobook. It is a fantastic book. And it, based on what's going on in our country right now, I mean, he wrote this book like 20 years ago, and it is crazy to see. Almost, it's like a premonition of what could happen right now if America got into another civil war based solely on left, right, conservative, liberal, blah blah. And it is a fascinating book. It really, really is. So I would encourage you to go out and check out Orson Scott Card, because you will not regret it. Like I say, it is worth your time if you are sick and tired of crappy science fiction, and you know, with what's coming out now. I mean, that's what I'm finding. I have to go back to look for the really great stuff and stuff. You know, and Ender's Game wasn't the best movie in the world, but it's pretty good. And the acting was pretty good. It's just they had too much material to try and stick into a 2-hour book. So it's got Harrison Ford in it, so it can't be terrible. Right? Anyway. So I would like to bring on my guest, second guest, or my guest for the evening. So I would like to have you guys welcome. Let me change my screen here. I gotta get where okay, there we go. Got to change a few things here because he deserves all of the lauding and praise I can give him. So, and I hope you guys bear with me. This is the first time I've ever had anybody on, so this could cause technical difficulties. But hail and welcome, Adega Outlaw. How are you, my friend?
Hello. I'm only doing this because he paid me, and he says nice things.
Yeah. I thought it was for the free advertisement. Anyway, no. So how are you tonight?
I'm okay. Man,
so
not bad.
So how? We just finished watching, because those of you who don't know, Adega just had another chapter premiere on his YouTube channel, chapter 2 of the I never say this right. Olganza?
Olganza.
How do you, Olganza.
That's how I
Witches.
say it. Olganza, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm terrible at pronouncing things and spelling things, so I apologize.
When you make up names, you know, it's kind of hard for people to get caught onto it.
Yeah, I mean,
some names are things that people know, and other ones is like, I'm gonna really stretch it just to piss people off, and that's one of them.
I almost have to have things spelled out phonetically. I'm like, sound it out, make sure I get it right, because
it's fun to watch people struggle.
it's gonna be terrible. But so I'm gonna get my questions out here, because I was just like, I didn't want to just wing this, because you know you're like a big time author. So
I don't know about that.
No. So what are the can't even read my own writing. That's terrible. So what are the books that you have written, and in what order did you write them in, so that everybody in here can kind of get a feel for what you've done?
There are 3 that aren't on my YouTube page: Evolution, Revolution, and Resolution. The first one's a novella. which means it's shorter than a novel and it's bigger than what you get in a comic book. And then the other two are novels. One's kind of a smaller novel, the other one's a good-sized one. I wrote those in order. Yeah, that's the novella. The same time I was finishing up Resolution, which is the last of those three, I started writing The Blood Witch. And that's just, it's fantasy. It was just a total jump off to go some other direction with it. And when I got towards the end of that, I kept getting haunted, go back to and do the other thoughts in my head about the Evolution series. So came out Echoes of Nor, but I really wanted to do a story about May because there's two people that are in every single book. It's May and Edric. And so I went back and just finished up Children of the Directive, which is basically her story. And it isn't hard for me doing them because I know my own head canon, and it was pretty easy. So there's no real indiscrepancies, except there was a little age problem for a second, but I fixed that. And now I'm working on the Organza Witches, and I gotta keep plugging along. Some good news on my front when it comes to publishing. I can't talk too much about it other than a publisher hunted me down, so I'm going to be both traditional and indie publishing. They call them a hybrid, which to be traditional is really hard to do, and I feel very grateful, very grateful. But they liked my Blood Witch, and I'm just, that was kind of a pet project. And so here we go. That's why Organza is going on, just to kind of keep the ball rolling with that one.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't read or listened to the Blood Witch, it is so good. It was one of them ones where he was dropping them out, every week or every couple weeks as fast as he could get them out, and I just kept pestering him. I'm like, no, you got to give me more. I think he got tired of it after a while. He's just like, hey, speaker.
No, there's you. There's Lady Mist. There's a couple of blind people. Doll, she bugged me, not really bugged me, but she talked to me about it on and off, and then of course she's always, when she's on her chat and if I show up, she starts saying nice things about me, so it's like, all right, I gotta do more, gotta keep going.
Adega struggles with compliments. He's like, no, but yeah, he really is talented, and they're great books. The Children of the Directive, I started that after you're about halfway through it, and I was on the road and I just went all the way through it, and then just waited for each one to come out, because the story and the reading, that you're a great reader, and then the music and the story, it sucks you in and you're just glued. Like I could not go through them fast enough because I wanted to get to the next part of the story.
I'm really glad you like it. I really am. It means a lot that I told Loki this. There was somebody else that I mentioned this to. People I can't talk about anyway. Not yet. But when I was young, I worked my tail off and became a very accomplished saxophone player. There's CDs out there somewhere with me in there. And then I became a chiropractor and worked my tail off and became very good at it. And in certain aspects of it, when it comes to sports injury type of stuff, I was one of the best in the whole region. And then I started writing and people started complimenting me about it. And I'm going, I didn't work for this. This is weird. Everything else I've worked hard at. And this, like, people like it. And I'm just, this can't be true.
Well, sometimes there's just that natural talent there that, just lying dormant, waiting to come out. But the other that kind of leads into my next question of how long have you been wanting to write these books? Like when did that start? Is this something that like you've been building up in your head for years, or was it just like boom?
The idea of Edric in Evolution was in my head for a very long time, since I was a kid. But when I actually started writing was about 2 years ago. I made a couple attempts early on when I was in college, but I didn't have the time. And I lost the first half chapter twice. So it just, so when I actually started cranking it out, it was about almost 3 years ago. So, and then um, the Blood Witch, people have heard this before, but it's really weird. There was a song, and it's in my odds and ends on my uh, YouTube channel, or you can go to uh, co.ag music, and it's called, oh gosh, now I'm going to hiccup in my brain like you did earlier. A Strange Kind of Love is what it's called. And it was, he had a voiceover, and it was only just a few lines of this lady where she was talking. She's fascinated with death, the smell of it, the whole thing. Um, and it clicked in a short story. So I wrote the short story for it, and he thought it was great. And then he wrote a song called Vampires from the New World. And then as soon as I heard that, it's like Blood Witch was there. Everything. It was all there once. And I just, whoa, okay. So I started writing that down. And I got halfway through and I thought, yeah, this is a good ending. And then I walked away from it, and I started doing the end of Echoes of Nor. And I was like going, I got to go back and do that. And so it finished up. And as a lark, just as a lark, I sent it off to a publishing company because they were taking, there was a brief time when they decided to take applications and wanted the first couple chapters. And I thought, I'll send it into a professional to see what they think, where I can improve. And the rest I can't talk about.
That's all right. Well, we'll get that eventually. So, um, but so, oh no, I lost my train of thought again.
That's why
So,
you
what
take
was
notes,
it?
right?
Yeah, what was it that inspired you to write these books? Like, was it like I
Oh, I'm
said?
like every single one of you, or most of you that are in there, that you've had experience with your family where you sat and watched sci-fi, whether it be at the theater or whether it be on TV watching Star Trek. Your parents took joy in it. You had friends that did, and I did too. And when I go to bed at night, I go to bed thinking of the movies that I had watched and the adventures that you know, Space 1999 on a traveling moon out in nowhere, or um, just different things, and you imagine how things could be different, or how you would have written this different, or what if they went this place, and it just, it feeds imagination like no other. There's a thing that I've discovered. My son's kind of an engineer, and we've dealt with engineers where we live in an area where there's a ton of them by the Ford, Chrysler, GM, all that fun stuff. And I'm not being given, it's a cultural thing. And there's a cultural thing about Western civilization, whether it be anything that was under the British Empire, basically, from America to New Zealand, that culture that was, festered over 200, 300 years, there's an imagination in that group that works like no other, because in these engineers say, well, we can bring in people from India, they're fabulous at math, but they cannot imagine solutions to certain problems. It just eludes them. Where if you take someone who's born in our type of culture, where the whole thing for the longest time is based on using a creative mind to accomplish things. How are we going to design a home better? How are we going to make a car look better? And it's ingrained into our whole culture. And that's why a lot of the writing, that's why a lot of Hollywood, I say Hollywood, but the entertainment industry comes from these countries. Oh, it's not exclusive, obviously, um, but uh, according to the engineers, the great ingenuity comes from the culture. And as you've been talking about how the writing and some of the people that I really enjoy come from our culture. Now, granted, we're limited at exposure because, we don't read, or some of us don't read Spanish or Russian, or because there are some cool things from different countries, like the Japanese with their some of their literature, anime, music. It's they have their own culture, and it's really phenomenal, but it doesn't seem to share as well. Ours tends to be a little bit more universal. So, that, long story short, it's childhood imagination, you know?
You think a lot of it comes from that sense of in the West that we have that individual spirit of we're always trying to better ourselves, and
I
that
mean,
it's
that's in most places. That spirit, it's the culture that, well, a lot of people give them a hard time, but I think they're awesome. Where you see on weekends the big trucks with the big tires, and they're driving out in the mud, making a mess of things and just having a blast, but they're using their minds to figure out, how do I make this vehicle work better so I can make a bigger mess and have fun flipping over backwards, you know?
yeah.
I just It's that type of culture where a lot of them are just like, we don't do that, we'll go play a game, mahjong or something. It's like, oh, come on, be a little wild, do something different. That's our culture, you
Yeah.
know. We're big sailing ships, whether it be across the ocean or up into the stars, where we just had the dragon come back. The bigger dreamers, I can't say all of them because it's not true. We're
Mm.
all human, but the bigger dreamers come from our culture. At least it seems that way, from people I've talked to. Like I said, I'm just generalizing. I'm not being specific, because there are people born all around the world that have visions and dreams of things that are amazing and far better than I could ever think of.
Oh. But yeah,
No,
no,
seriously.
I agree. I mean, you look around the world and some of the just in the architecture of the different cultures and the things that they'll make and pull off is it's mind-boggling that and it's sad because we don't always get to see that. I mean,
Right.
how many people get to travel all over the world and actually experience? I mean, I was lucky. I lived in England for 2 years, and I got a real appreciation of their sense of hanging on to their heritage. Like they don't tear buildings down a lot over there. They gut them out and then like rebuild them inside and stuff, because that structure was put up 200 years ago, and even if it's just a council house, they don't want to tear it down because that's part of their history. And sometimes I think we miss that. It's always fun to kind of see how different cultures deal with different things.
Right.
So when you're writing your books, do you pull um, from your personal experiences, your personal life? Does that influence like
Yeah, you
how
read my books, you know
what?
me.
Okay,
Seriously.
that's usually how most
My
but
philosophy's on there, the way of life, the things that I've seen only said in science fiction or fantasy, the traumas that people have gone through, like May and um, um, Veronica.
Mhm.
I've known patients that have gone through similar types of trauma, only set in our world, where it's been very, very traumatic, and watched them pull out of it. I've known um, patients that have brought in abused children, horrific things. I have seen people who have done very heroic things and never been rewarded for it. Secret Service, military, and it's just a matter of fact to them. It just, this is duty. This is what people need, and I don't need a pat on the back. I don't need a trophy. I don't need a statue. This is what good people do, and they don't claim to be good. Most of them will say, "No, I'm a terrible person," but they've done heroic things. Um,
Yeah, I know in
those are what's
history.
in the book. Those are what's in the book. That's you read those, you know who I am.
I know that a lot of times in history, the greatest leaders are the ones that didn't want leadership, that it was thrust upon them. George Washington and other people. He never wanted to be king. He never wanted to be, who he was. But because of who he was,
Right.
he took those responsibilities and did amazing things with them.
Right. Now that's Edric in the sci-fi. That you guys don't have access to the second and third book, but that's his whole. I mean, he was trained. He was engineered physically to be a weapon, and because of his adopted parents, or what they thought he was his real parents, um, he didn't end up that way, and he didn't expect, because of their compassion and his upbringing, that doing the right thing was something that you did because it was the right thing, not because of reward.
Yeah, I agree. See, I remember in Children of the Directive, the you build a connection between May and I think Matt, and
Right,
then he
right,
ends up being killed. I remember
right.
commenting on that video, thinking, man, they should teach this, how you wrote those two characters together. I mean, that should be taught in class somewhere, because you feel what they're feeling, and I
Thank you.
remember sitting there thinking that was just, extremely well done, and that the depth of that emotion, even though she doesn't really understand it till it's almost too late, and how many of us have gone through something like that where we didn't realize we were in love, or how deep our feeling was till that wasn't there anymore.
Right.
And so, yeah, I love that particular part in that book. I mean, I loved all of it, but so with the new book that you're doing
That
now,
actually was physically painful to write.
yeah, I mean, you
No,
could tell.
seriously, when there are times, and you'll be able to notice them, because I tend to fluctuate from just telling a story and then get into a little bit where things get more almost poetic, and I'm not trying to, but it comes out that way. And when you notice that, just realize when I'm writing that, physically I'm getting wiped out, you know. And it usually comes within a few minutes, and I just pound it out, and afterwards I'm just like, okay, I got to step away for a day or two, because it physically takes a lot out of me. It's just weird. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but it does that.
Well, I think that just, I mean, I felt it. I felt that emotion. It actually affected me. So, I mean, that's why I remember it so well. Is it just, I remember thinking, holy crap, this was, I mean, a lot of literature doesn't grab you that way, but yeah, I appreciated that. I thought that was amazing. Um, so with the new book, um, Olgan Saw. No, I said it wrong again.
It's close enough. Organza.
Alganza. Gosh dang, I'm gonna have to spell that out, like, so I can remember.
No,
Or
I'm not
like
gonna correct you anymore, because it's fun to watch you struggle.
it's like me trying to spell the call from Children of the Directive. I don't know how
Right.
many times I kept typing in
CAUL.
I was like KALU or whatever, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I suck. But no, with this new book, so where does it? How does it fit in with the Blood Witch? Is it
It's
before,
about
after?
900 years before the Blood Witch. The story that you're seeing right now, the one I just posted, Hannah,
Mhm.
she is the mother of all blood witches.
Okay.
Because of her magic, her healing magic, they came into existence, and it doesn't end. It keeps on going. It's in the Blood Witch, there's a line from a seer who sees back in the history, because they kind of lost it when Veronica's on the scene. It's um, blood without end, all
See,
because of
because
some magic that she did. Go
I
ahead.
thought the concept of mage sleep, I thought that was great. That it actually takes a physical toll on them to perform large scale magic, or really complicated stuff. That, I mean, most of the time in most fantasy genres, there's no toll. It's just like they just throw out lightning bolts or do whatever, and it's just like, oh, and then they're off to the next thing. So I thought that was that just something that popped in, or was that something that, I mean, where did that come from?
I hate overpowered things.
Mhm.
Oh, this is the ultimate, and this is, and this is all about, Ray is so amazing. I hate overpowered things. Um, and that's even with Edric, who becomes the greatest being that was ever in the universe, except it takes him a very long time. He has to learn, he has to work at it, he has to be humble. All of it has to, and that's the thing with in the sci-fi universe, you want all your gifts, you have to be a good person, and you have to work at it. That's why May didn't express her gift except for once or twice until the very end, when she actually overcame all that training that she had to be such a horrific person. When it comes to the mages, the main story isn't about the mages, it's about the blood witches, male or female, doesn't matter. But they have to have their limitations too. Because you know the book, the first time that Veronica got juiced up, it only lasted a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
She had to learn that, you know what, you got to pace yourself. You got to replenish that ability. Otherwise, you're vulnerable afterwards. And the same with you see these stories where they say, well, you're a magician, but they do such limited things. But I wanted them to do big things, but there had to be a penalty for it, so they're not overpowered, where they destroy entire civilizations or one-man army or this or that or the other. There has to be shackles on abilities, and that's the whole idea of the mage sleep. Is they could do little things, odds and ends, little tricks for children, but when it comes to the big stuff, it's gonna take a toll. You better be prepared to pay for it.
No, and I love that because it keeps it from getting too overwhelming. I'm a huge fan of My Hero Academia, and right now, and sometimes I'm watching that thinking, all right, how do they top this now? Because they've got to go even higher in the next, and I find myself thinking that it just, and I like that because as I was going through the Blood Witch, like when they're fighting and the dark powered mage. I mean, there's a real strategy to that. It's like, okay, we have to time this so that he's wiped out and we have a chance to actually beat, it really gives it like that ticking clock, almost kind of a feel. Okay, we've got a moment now, we can go.
I like the time stretch. If you were to be able to see a resolution, almost the entire book is that ticking time. Boom, 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 boom. It becomes more and more urgent as the clock ticks along, but it'll come out eventually.
Yeah. So, and I don't know if you can answer these questions, but so at one time I'd heard that Evolution was possibly going to get published by an outside publisher, and that's why you took it off. Can you even talk about that part of things, or? It's okay if you can't, but
no, I can't. Future projects, anything future projects, I won't be able to talk about for another couple months.
Okay, awesome. No, I just I missed the second and third one of those books before they came off. So now I've got
Lady Mist is still in the audience. She got to go through. Yeah, she's there. She got to go through all of them. So you ever get her on, she could fill you in, but I have to be quiet about it. And then Samantha Joe has read the second one, and she has a third one. I don't know if she's read the third one yet, so I got to get with her and pick her brain about those things. But it's not a big hurry.
Okay, yeah, I just it's one of those things where I got through it, and I'm just like, well, now what do I like?
Well, so I left it off where it's going to go. It had Marcus. And obviously, if you went through Echoes of Nor, Marcus is still around. Him, Johann, they were just briefly talked about at the very end of the book. And Janice, but it expands from there. It basically, that could be almost part of the prologue of Revolution. So, yeah, I like doing that. I like making time jumps in front and back, but.
Yeah,
that one kind of jumps you a little bit ahead.
Yeah, I think that's good because then it kind of keeps people guessing, which I like that. I don't like to know where the story's going to go. Like you've surprised me with some of where you've taken the story several times as I've been reading the books. I've been thinking, this is where this is going, and then you'll make a left turn, and I'm just like, yes, that was even better. So, I mean, I like that when I'm reading or I'm listening to something to get caught off guard. And to have my expectations trumped. So, I mean, that's a really cool thing in your writing. So as someone who likes that in writing, I know a lot of people, they like to see where the story's going. My
like mom, I thought it was the weirdest thing. She always read the last page first. It drove me nuts. Why do you do that?
You
She
opened your
didn't like the
presents at Christmas
surprises.
time
Yeah.
before, didn't you?
So it was. I can rest assured, she's gone, and this writing gift is not coming from her because I can't do that. I can't give anything away.
Oh, that's a good thing, though. I mean, it's fun to be. Well, I think I said this on one of your chapters too. This is how you subvert expectations. You don't make it crappy. You don't go, hey, this is what you wanted. I'm going to do something really bad that you're not going to like, so that you do something that you're just like, wow, I did not see that coming. And it's sad that we're not getting that right now from a lot of writers and especially people in Hollywood, is that they've lost that ability to surprise you in a positive way. And
The script doctor brought something up, and there, if there's someone I disagree with when it comes to writing, half of the time I disagree with him. But in this he was very insightful. Something I learned from him because I brought your same thing up that you just said, and he says it's not that they're bad writers; it's that the people that are over their shoulder telling them what to write are forcing them to do that. A lot of times when we think it's bad writing, it isn't. It's the supervisors, it's the producers, it's
that are
other
keeping
people
them.
putting shackles on these brilliant minds that can't express themselves.
Oh,
How brilliant they are, none of us will know because, I mean, they may be just average, but their average is far better than what we're getting out of a lot of our media nowadays.
yeah.
You know, they say Space and Snowflake.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that one's going to haunt people for a long time. Just the pictures of what those characters were supposed to look like. I heard that got canceled. Well, I hope it
yeah,
did because it
yeah,
was
but the whole
terrible.
thing, creativity, the word itself means create, to be creative. What they're doing has nothing to it has nothing to do with creativity. It's narrative.
Yeah,
Those are two entirely different words. Those are two entirely different ways of being expressed, and they both have their place, but narrative isn't entertaining where creativity is, whether it
yeah,
be in art, music, language. you know that's just the whole difference. Narrative is for an education, whether it be a good or propaganda, which is what a lot of we're getting, but
yeah.
that's just the way
Very
it
much
is.
so.
You take away the creativity, you take away the art form, and you get a lot of bored people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And
true.
a lot of people walk out of theaters and stuff going,
Yep.
why did I just spend that much money? I mean, for me to take my kids to a theater, we're talking over $100 because I have 6 kids. So, I mean, that's my fault for having so many kids, but I love my kids, so that's okay. But I mean, you end up walking out going, why? Why did I do that? Why is like, and the sad part is most movies I can walk out of going, if they'd have just changed that or done a few things differently, that could have been awesome. I was like, but it's like they got halfway there and then just went, nah, never mind. And it's really kind of frustrating for somebody who's just like, no, you were onto something good, but you stumbled somewhere there. And I think that's what it's like you're saying. The creativity was going, and then somebody goes, no, we don't want our movie to be about that. We want you to change it. And that then it corrupts the creativity. So we're coming up, pardon me, on the end of an hour. For the people who came into the chat late, Curtis YZ V Star 333, pardon me.
Oh, I haven't even looked at chat. Hey,
Yeah,
gentlemen. Hey, ladies.
we got yakking along here, and I'm just like, oh my, we picked up a whole bunch of people that I hadn't said hello to. So, but yeah, if you came in late, I encourage you to go back. This has been an awesome show, very fun to talk to Adega, and we're gonna have to get Adega to come back because I mean, if he will, because there's so many other subjects I want to pick his brain on. So, but yeah, thank you for being here tonight, Adega.
Oh,
Please go like, share, and subscribe to Adega's channel and support his works. If you want good content, great support the people and support the things you love.
You're not supporting me, though. That's the
Yeah.
thing. That doesn't support me. That supports my family, because I
Yeah.
have a terminal illness and it's been screaming at me the past week. I'm not holding anything back. I've been flat out miserable the past week and a half. But I have obligations to friends, and I value that. That's why I'm here tonight. That's why I was with Loki the other night. But those books are written because of my illness. It's for my family, not for me. So if you could share, tell, spread the word that you like it. I mean, I haven't met anybody who hasn't really been disappointed at all, so I'm not afraid of saying they're good stuff. So, and plus, when the Blood Witch comes out next year, that'll give you more fuel to help support my family. I mean,
yeah, support Adega's family. It's this is a worthwhile thing, and you're getting something wonderful for it. I mean, we're all there for you. We're all pulling for you. We appreciate what you're doing and the cool things that you bring into our lives. I mean, this is, I know this has been a blessing to me, just to get to know you, to get to read your books, to be a part of things. It is a very special thing. That's one of the reasons I joined and got on YouTube, was because I wanted this. I wanted those connections with great people and who love and want to share and be a part of something amazing.
That's something too. We have a really wonderful community. We have some community leaders. You're starting Loki, Trey, PJ. There's quite a few, but the only thing is our reach is limited, and if you don't talk, your reach stays limited.
Yep.
So it's those odd and end people that pop up here and there that you don't know, but you should know.
Yep.
And you should pay attention to what they're doing and compliment them when they're doing good, support them when you can, and your communities will grow bit by bit. And that's what's going to happen with you. So,
well, I hope I'm worthy of that. I hope that I bring something to this that maybe other people don't, or
just
whatever.
Keep the dog in the camera, then you'll be doing all right. The dog will sell for you.
The dog will sell. Yeah, absolutely. But no, Cred Sox 5. Sorry, I didn't see you come in. Welcome, and thanks everybody for being here. And we will see you next Sunday. Next Sunday, we are going to be talking about My Hero Academia. So if anybody's interested in being on and talking about that, please come and let me know. Leave a comment in the chat. Hit me up on Twitter, because I'm kind of excited about this one, especially because I'm going to have 2 guests come on the show that are my children that absolutely love this show, and we're going to sit and talk about it. So what's that?
Bring the dog.
Yeah, and we'll bring Jack. Jack will be here next week. So you usually just see his butt wandering around behind me here in the picture frames.
Even that did better for you.
Hey, Speaker's got a dog butt on his channel.
Speaker or dog butt?
Dog butt. The dog butt's probably be,
Hey, we're so crazy doing corgi butt all the time. We'll always have a terrier butt,
Anyway, but yeah, so next week we are going to be at a different time. I've got to push this back to 6:30 Mountain Standard Time, so it'll be 7:30 Central. We're feeding some missionaries next week, so I need to be here for that and do that for them. So anyway, till next week, thanks for being here, and we will talk to you next time. Bye now. Great authors like Adega bring us the dreams and visions of things we've never imagined. They open our eyes to worlds and places and characters that enrich our lives, expand our minds, and inspire us to be greater than we are. Through their stories, we will travel through the stars, journey to the depths of the deepest oceans, stare into the hearts of human beings and monsters alike, we will see unimaginable beauty, horror, cruelty, peace, love, hate, rage, cruelty, kindness, and forgiveness, and all the other spectrums of human emotions. We will climb every mountain, plumb every depth, meet races we've never imagined existed, and all because these special people had the skill and talent to bring these things to all of those of us out here in the real world, clamoring for the adventures we may never have in life. But because of them, we can.